Hi everyone, John Cottrell here of MBODY Yoga, and this is Soft Flow Yoga. It's a 60-minute gentle yoga practice. Thanks for joining me. So for this class, we're going to do something a little bit different. We will be going through our typical warm-ups and movements, but I've got a specific goal in mind. I've entitled this class, Awaken the Dead Butt. Yes, you heard that right. We're going to awaken the dead butt. Now, I'm calling it that because of this. Now, I experience in pretty much all of my adult life what is called an anterior tilt in my pelvis. I'll show you that in a moment. And for me, it's caused some low back pain. But yoga has really helped me quite a bit to really engage my pelvis, my core, to help eliminate or at least soften that uncomfortable feeling in my low back. And what I discovered over these years and want to share with you are just some simple exercises and movements in yoga that can actually help that anterior tilt. We're going to help to get a posterior tilt. Again, I'll show you these in a moment. So the areas we're going to focus on are our low bellies for some core strength, some light stretching in our hip flexors, and we're going to engage our glutes. So sometimes we might experience, and there are people out there calling it this, dead butt. And all it means is that we disengage or we don't activate our glute muscles as much as we think we do or even should, because it's part of that strengthening and support system of the middle section of our bodies. So we'll be doing some exercises to help activate our glutes. So that's our practice today. So get ready. Props, same things that we always use. You will need a blanket, something soft. It could be a towel that you can fold up that we'll use. A couple of yoga blocks or some hardbound books can come in handy for this practice as well. And I like to have a nice big bolster or a pillow nearby just in case we want something soft to sit on or use in our Shavasana practice. So let's begin as we always do. Go ahead and start in seated, so something comfortable that's for you. I like to start in a half lotus position. I'm sitting on my blanket, which gives me a little bit of a lift, and this feels good for me. Now, if crossing your legs in this fashion does not feel good for you, feel free to sit more in an easy pose, just crossing at the shins and ankles, or even extending a leg or two if you need to. If you need extra support, feel free to sit in a chair or up against a wall. Wherever you are, you just want to sit up as tall as you can. Feel a nice lengthening through the spine, up and down. You want to feel a lightness in the body, and we're going to start to engage the breath. You might start with a few deep breaths. Inhale deeply through your nose. Then you can exhale through your nose or exhale through your mouth. Inhale deeply and exhale completely. And then just continue to breathe just more gently, a little softer, just to bring awareness to the breath. This is a reminder that breath is the foundation of our practice. So we begin here. Helps us to become more present, more connected. Helps us to move inside of ourselves. And to help that process, you can close your eyes if you'd like, helping to journey inward. You can certainly keep your eyes open if that's more comfortable for you. Just take a soft gaze forward or downward at the ground. And just continue with your breath. Breathe in a way if you're able so you can feel the breath. Feel it move through your body. For example, as you inhale, just feel the breath rising upward. You might even imagine your breath sits or rests in your belly, and you're trying to pull it up to fill your lungs. And then you can exhale completely. So just feel how the body is responding to your breath. Another thing you can do here, when you inhale, again, feel the lengthening of the spine, feel the expansion of your lungs, and when you exhale, as you're able, draw your belly in. Just a light connection, a light contraction of the abdominal muscles. So we're already establishing that awareness of our core strength. And another way to be fully aware of the breath is to listen to the sound of your breath. So if your breath is quiet at the moment, just simply turn up the volume. Good, and just hold in stillness here for a few moments. Feeling the breath, listening to the sound of the breath. Good. Go ahead and take 3 more breaths. After that third breath, we'll start our movements. It'll be a very simple movement to start. Now, when you're ready, go ahead and inhale and extend your arms out and across the room, reaching, nice stretch. Continue the breath in as you reach all the way up towards the ceiling. Completing the in-breath, and as you exhale, extend your arms out and let them float back down to the sides of your body. Let's do that again. So an inhale, extend your arms out, reaching as if you'll touch the walls on either side of you, and eventually up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, extend the arms out, touch the walls, and bring them back down. Now go ahead and continue to breathe and move at your own pace. You don't necessarily need to follow me, you're following your own breath. Now again, as you inhale, you're extending your arms out and up, but continue to feel the breath rising upward and feel the expansion in your lungs. Now, when you exhale and the arms come down, you're drawing your navel inward towards your spine. That creates the abdominal lock. The intention there is to keep the energy upward because we were breathing in, sending that breath or prana upward in our higher chakra system here. We want to keep that uplifting sensation, so we create a lock down here by drawing the belly in. And that's the exhale. So again, wherever you are, you'll inhale, extending the arms up, feeling the breath rising, that energy of prana rising. Exhale, arms come down, but the breath doesn't drop. The belly draws in. Good. Complete the breath that you're on right now and take 2 more breaths. Take your time. Whenever you're complete, you can just bring your arms back down, let them rest in your lap, and just feel the body just relax here. While still seated, you're going to bring your hands behind you. You might even prop yourself up onto your fingertips just to help the length in your arms here. So as the arms come back, feel the shoulders pull back. You might need to actively pull them back and hold them back. And to hold them back, you're probably experiencing the shoulder blades or the muscles of the upper back engage or squeeze to hold the shoulders back. You can even tip the chin up slightly, so we're creating a mild back bend. Now, as you inhale, press into the ground with your fingers. Inhale, feel the breath rising to fill your lungs. That same expansive feeling here. Then as you exhale, squeeze your shoulder blades together behind you and continue to draw your belly in, engaging the abdominal lock. Do that a few more times. You may notice as you do this, more energy is generated in the body. You're going to really feel this. Energy in your arms, shoulders rolled back, chest expanding and lifting. Exhaling and feeling that core engagement. Take 2 more breaths. When you're complete, you can just lower your chin to look forward. Soften the body, walk your hands towards yourself here, and just bring your hands back into your lap and come back to stillness. And just notice that shift, that change from that very activated body to a little bit more of a relaxed body. All right, now we move into our forward fold. So if your legs are crossed, let's uncross the legs and bring the soles of the feet together. You can draw the heels in closely if that feels okay in the hips and the knees, but it's okay to actually take the feet forward, taking some of the bend out of the knees if you have sensitive knees. And don't worry if the legs don't touch the floor, because they don't have to touch the floor. That's where your books or blocks or even some small pillows can come in handy, and just tuck them underneath your knees, just like this. And you probably can't reach your feet unless you are bending over. That's fine, just hold on to your shins or ankles. Now we're going to inhale and just continue to feel the breath rising. Fill up your lungs, also the spinal extension. Exhale, draw belly in for support and start to hinge forward just a little bit, leading with your heart and your chin. Again, just a little bit. One of the things that we focus on in soft flow is that we're moving slowly, we take our time, we don't even go too deep into our postures, really working at about 60 to 70%. So you want to be able to get into the pose and hold the pose without overwhelming the body. You don't want to feel strained or overwhelmed, right? Just want to be able to feel comfortable. You can still breathe deeply and easily, but there's still a benefit to the body. Now you can keep the spine and back straight if you'd like, but you can also lower your chin a little bit and round your back. That'll provide you a little bit more space. You can go a little deeper, and it shouldn't compromise that 60 to 70% that you're working with. As you're breathing in, you want to feel the expansion in your back if you're able. Just as we were leaning back with our back bend, we're expanding through the chest space, the front body. Now in this forward fold sensation, try to expand your back as best as you can. Even notice other sensations down through the whole back body. This is also a hip opener, so there might be a light stretch happening in the inner legs. Let's take 3 more breaths. Now if you're folded and your back is rounded, that's fine. We're going to hinge our way back up. Well, let's re-extend the spine first. So if the back is rounded, just tip the chin up a little bit to realign the neck and spine. That'll straighten it out a little bit. And then hinge your way up. You can even press your hands into the floor to help assist your body as you rise up, still feeling tall in the seat, and just hold for another breath or 2. All right, we're going to shift to our hands and knees, so just go ahead and move your blocks to the side. Here's where you may want to use some padding, like your blanket or folded towel, for a little extra comfort for your hands and your knees. Now this is something we do all the time in soft flow, but this is also the start of our focus today, of our practice. We're going to be working on correcting if you happen to have an anterior tilt. Now if you want to come off your hands so I can show you this, you can just sit back, maybe tuck your toes into, maybe just sit back just to get off of your hands. Let's see if I can actually demonstrate this. Now I don't know if you can really tell, but I'm going to force it just a little bit, but I've got a kind of I just call it a sway in my back. Basically my pelvis tips forward like this, if I've got the angles of my hands correct. Kind of tips forward. And what we would like to have ideally is a pelvis that has some alignment like this. Then there's that's anterior, going this way at an angle forward, and this is more level, and then a posterior tilt of the pelvis would be something like that. Okay? So I've got somewhat of an anterior tilt. My pelvis tips forward. I imagine like a bowl. Okay, your pelvis is a bowl, and actually pelvis in Latin is bowl. And so my bowl is tipped forward. So I imagine I had a bowl of soup, and my soup tends to spill forward. I work hard to align my bowl so my soup doesn't spill out. Hopefully that makes sense. So if we came to our hands and knees here, we do what we call cat and cow pose, which is 2 poses that flow together, but it's really moving the pelvis in an anterior way and a posterior way. So together we'll inhale and just tip the chin up a little bit. We create an arched back. It creates a back bend, and this is the anterior tilt. Hold that for a moment, just take a breath or 2 and just notice what that feels like for you. For me, I really feel that in my low back because of the sensitivity in my low back. Inhale again right here, and exhale. We're going to tuck the pelvis under, which is the posterior tilt, which rounds the spine. Pull the belly button up towards spine and tuck the chin in towards your chest. See if you can hold this for several breaths. Notice the roundedness in the back, still breathing. And the pelvis is kind of tucked under. Okay, that's the posterior tilt. And in cat pose, we're still here. The belly button's pulling up towards spine, so we're still engaging that abdominal lock. Now let's just make this flow. Inhale, tip the pelvis back, anterior tilt. Let the back arch, your belly will drop, heart opens, look forward. Exhale, tuck pelvis under, posterior tilt, rounded spine, chin to chest, engage core. And just continue in slow motion. Breathing. Now we'll be doing this same kind of movement in a couple of other exercises. But we want you to get that sensation of being able to move the pelvis in this rocking sensation. And also if you're not very aware of how your pelvis moves or whether or not you have an anterior tilt or a posterior tilt, or if your pelvis is aligned, this is a good indicator. All right, finish the breath that you're on and take 2 more. And we're just going to finish in a neutral position here, just holding. Alrighty, so if you are using some padding here, let's crawl off the pad, let's set it to the side. We're going to come to a downward facing dog. So if you are here, hands and knees, if your wrists were directly underneath the shoulders, we're going to step the hands forward a bit so that your wrists are out from underneath the shoulders. Alrighty, spread out your fingers here as well. Gripping the mat with the fingertips so you have a good foundation. Even press into the mat with your palms to flatten the palms. It even stretches open your hands. And as you press, feel the energy and strength in your arms. Now tuck your toes. We're going to do one more cat-cow flow. Inhale, anterior tilt for cow, making the back bend. Exhale, posterior tilt for cat pose. Feel belly button pull up towards spine. Hold this position. Now, with toes tucked, lift the knees off the floor, send your hips into the air. Now we're creating more of a straight line through the whole torso. Feel free to adjust your feet on your mat by taking them a little wider if that feels good, and even adjust your hands. Keep a good bend in your knees here, like you're about to kneel down. But as you bend the knees, send your hips up into the air. Press hands into the floor, straightening the torso. Now you probably can't tell, and it's hard for me to tell even too, but I can still feel that anterior tilt in my body. And so I sometimes kind of tuck under just a little bit in this position. You may not need to do that. Now we're just going to take a few steps forward until our feet are perhaps in the center of the mat, but making sure your feet are flat on the ground. And then just slide your fingers towards your toes. Now in a forward fold, you have a nice rounded spine, and you maybe will create some space in that low back area. Now we're going to slide the hands up to the shins here and just hold in this halfway lift. Now you want to be sure your feet feel really firm on the floor. Be aware if you're shifting back into your heels or if you're weighted forward in your toes. See if you can find the balance on the whole foot, both feet. Knees are soft. Your torso is parallel to the floor. Hands just resting on your shins, knees or thighs. And feel the extension here. The crown of your head feels like it's moving directly forward, while your hips and tailbone are moving to the back of the room. Take a few more breaths, inhaling to extend the torso and spine, and exhaling, still pulling the belly button up towards spine. Again, we're going to be focusing on some core strengthening as we do some of our exercises together. And this is one way you can feel that. Now go ahead and shift your weight into the heel so your toes feel light. Bend your knees, lower your hips like you're sitting down into a low chair. Start to look forward, take your arms out to the side, and then stand up nice and tall. Reach into the air. Nice big stretch. And exhale, you're going to bring your arms down to your side. Go ahead and roll your shoulders a little bit. Just kind of shake that out. Alrighty. Go ahead and place your hands on your hips. Now that we're in a standing position, maybe you can kind of feel or sense how your pelvis sits in your own body. Maybe just come to a kind of a basic standing posture and just notice, do you have a little sway in your back? Okay, does it feel like your pelvis is tipped forward a little bit, or level, or even in a posterior tilt? Okay, and then see if you can, with a little bend in the knees, see if you can even rock the pelvis, just like we did on the floor there on our hands and knees doing cat and cow. Okay, and just notice again how you naturally stand. Now sometimes when I stand like this, because it tends to put some pressure on my low back, I consciously tuck under. Could you see that? I tuck under, so I loosen or make more space in my low back, and I engage my core. Alrighty? So I try to stand more like this, getting more of an even pelvic tilt. Alrighty, let's go ahead and go through our flow here. We're going to come up to mountain pose. Inhale, extend your arms into the air. Exhale, we're going to swan dive forward. Just spread your wings, bend your knees, and sit back slowly and carefully. Go ahead and bring the hands down. Let the belly drop. Head will drop, and you'll be in a forward fold. You might touch your toes, but you don't have to touch your toes. Inhale, slide your hands up to your shins or knees and extend your spine. Just rising up halfway. Now on this exhale, you're going to fold and come all the way down to the floor, placing your hands on the mat. And start walking both feet back to the back end of your mat until you're in plank pose or a high push-up position right here. We're going to inhale just to feel a bit more length and strength in the body. As you exhale, bend the knees like you're about to kneel, but send your hips into the air. We're just returning to downward facing dog like we did earlier. Feel free to tiptoe forward a little bit. Maybe take the feet a little wider if that feels better. Hands firmly pressing into the mat. Straight arms. Let your head relax here too. Maybe your ears or right alongside the arms. Keep a good bend in the knees. Send your hips up. You can even sink the chest a little bit towards the floor. Let's continue. We're going to inhale and lift the right foot and extend the right leg back. It doesn't have to lift high. Just reach back energetically to the back wall. As we exhale, bend the right knee. Bring the knee in towards your chest or chin. At the same time, shift your whole upper body forward until your shoulders are aligned over the wrists. And then just set your right foot down, just the toes like this, so the heel might be lifted. And then set the left knee onto the floor. From here, kind of shift your weight back so you have less weight in the hands, particularly your right hand, because you're going to use that hand. Go get your right foot, pick it up, and place it up a little higher on your mat. We're going to re-lift the left knee, so we're in this lunge-like fashion. We're going to pivot or turn that left heel to the floor. Press it into the ground. Now the weight of the body still may be forward. We need to change that. Rise up to your fingertips. Step the hands back, so maybe it's behind this front heel. And it'll shift your body weight back. Put more weight into that back foot. We want balance here. Rise up higher onto the fingertips as best as you can to help elongate through your torso, so it's straight as can be, in your crown or the top of your head is pointing forward. Still with a good knee bend here, you're going to hinge your way up. Now what you can do is place both hands or at least one hand on your thigh and push and help you to lift up until you're nice and tall, facing forward. And then reach up into the air. We're going to do this briefly here because we're going to talk about this posture in a moment. Reaching high, lunging low. Couple breaths. Notice what this feels like. We are in a warrior one position. Now go ahead and relax the arms. Just bring the arms down and just notice what's happening in the legs. You do want to have nice alignment here. Good knee bend. Doesn't have to be too bent. Knee and toes are pointing forward. But pay attention to what's happening in the left leg, right through here. This is your left hip flexor. Now in our exercise, this is something we do want to stretch. This is a posture that does that. It lengthens this part of the body. Alrighty? Let's go ahead and inhale and take the arms back up into the air. And we're going to exhale and open this up. Turn your torso towards the left side of the room and bring your arms down to parallel. We're going to hold here for a moment, same thing. Good. Go ahead and relax the arms again. Now, bring your hands to your hips. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see this, because this is another indicator of where you can understand where your pelvis is, especially in this pose. I'm going to try to face you, I think. Like this, yes. And so I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit. And so sometimes we are in this posture, and see how my bum is kind of tipped back? This is that anterior tilt. I'm exaggerating this. My soup is spilling out the front here. Now I'm exaggerating this, but what I typically need to do is lift a little bit, tuck the pelvis under like that, so my tailbone is pointing straight down rather than back that direction, and it engages the core. And then I'm in my lunge and I feel tall. It's nice alignment through the hip, alrighty, through the belt line. So just kind of check in with your own body. You may not need to change that at all, Alrighty? But just being aware if you might have that particular tilt. Let's go ahead and re-extend the arms and hold that for a moment. Now, if you needed to tuck under, you might even feel, you might need to place your hands back there, you might be flexing your glute muscles, and that's a good thing too. All right, now you can soften that a little bit, soften the glutes, even tip the pelvis forward a little. This is going to help us go to side angle. Reach forward because we need to loosen up in that area to move. So we reach forward, rotate the arms, right hand down, left hand up into the air. All right? So we don't want to feel too engaged, okay, in the pelvis to tip over. But we don't want to release completely because we want support as well. So it's a balance. We don't want to just drop and feel, you know, like a wet noodle, but we need to have some engagement, but not too much where it compromises the pose. Let's breathe in, and as we exhale, I like to lift, just kind of come up and then turn towards the front, arms forward, and then fold. Bring the hands down to the floor, rise up onto your tiptoes behind you, hold here for a moment, press hands firmly into the mat, strong hands, strong arms, so you can slide the right foot back so you're in plank pose. Inhale right where you are. Exhale, bend your knees, send your hips into the air. It's a return to downward facing. Adjust your feet and hands, and we're going to do the other side, the exact same thing. We're moving into a warrior one, which will get into that right hip flexor, and then open to warrior two so we can check in with the pelvis. Here we go. Inhale, pick up the left foot and extend the left leg straight back. Doesn't have to lift high, just energetically reaching, straight leg. Exhale, bend the left knee. Bring the knee in toward your chest or chin as you're shifting your whole upper body forward, shoulders over your wrist for good alignment. Set your left foot down, heel is lifted, but set the right knee down. Here we are. Shift back so you can free up this left hand. Let's go get the foot, place it up a little higher on the mat. Relift the right knee, pivot or turn right heel to the floor. Weight is way forward, so rise up onto fingertips. Step the hands back so they're behind the left heel. As best as you can, extend your torso out over the left thigh. If you're able, just hinge your way up with an exhale. Give energy to the body, or place one or two hands on your mid-thigh right here, pressing to help you lift. We're still facing forward, and go ahead and extend the arms up into the air. We're in this lunge. Now, if it feels like your feet are too far apart and you feel too deep in the lunge, you can shorten the distance between the feet. That's fine. Okay, let's relax the arms for a moment. Check in with alignment. Left knee is bent. Knee and toes are pointing forward, so check that out. But also notice what's happening in the right hip flexor. That stretch down through the kind of upper thigh, just below the belt line. Okay, that's a good thing. Now, another thing that I'm noticing, because of this lunge, I don't feel like my glutes are really engaged, okay? So that's what we call that dead butt, okay? Now, dead butt just really means you're really not engaging your glutes in many positions, even when they should be engaging, but sometimes they don't, okay? But we can practice that. Even here, you can kind of scoop the pelvis under and feel some activation. It'll be more in the right leg. Let's inhale, shoot the arms up. Exhale, turn torso towards the right side of the room. Arms come down to parallel. We're in warrior two. Hold for a moment to arrive in the posture, and then we'll check in with the pelvis. Let's relax the arms. Bring the hands to your hips. Let's continue to check in with alignment. Left knee and toes pointing forward. You can even turn or change the angle of your right foot. Check in with your bowl of soup. Is it spilling forward? Is it spilling backward? See if you can find that center. Again, if you need to do the posterior tilt, you'll drop the tailbone down and it pulls the lip of the front of the bowl up and engages the low core muscles. And it helps you to stabilize the posture. Let's re-extend the arms. Now you can soften that just a little, because we want some engagement but some space so we can reach forward out over that left leg, angled upper body, rotate the arms so we're reaching high and low. So this is our side angle pose. Reaching up, reaching down, nice opening, expansiveness in the body. Great hip opener here too. We're going to breathe in, getting ready to come out of the pose. As we exhale, you might tip up a little bit. Turn to face forward, arms out front, then fold. Bring your hands down to the mat. Rise up onto your tiptoes behind you. Just pause for some realignment. Press hands firmly into the ground, strong straight arms so you can slide and pull the left foot back, returning to plank pose. Hold here. Now we're going to bring the knees back down to the floor. Feel free to bring the blanket underneath you if you'd like for padding for your hands and knees. We're just going to do the cat and cow movement again. Just to remind you of that pelvic movement. Inhale, tip the pelvis back. Let the belly drop, the back arches, heart opens, look forward. Anterior tilt, cow pose. Exhale, start with the pelvis. See if you can tuck it under. Pulls the belly button up towards spine, engaging the core, rounding the spine, chin to chest. This is cat. 2 more times on your own. Try to go slowly so you can pay attention. Because we're going to do this on our backs in a moment. And when you're done with those 3 breaths, just pause for a moment on hands and knees. Then we're going to sit back briefly in hero, sit off to the side, swing the legs around to the front. Now we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do our typical thing, which is bridge pose. And we use our blocks or books for support. But then we're going to do a similar posture but without the blocks. So go ahead and lie down onto your back. You can go ahead and bring your knees into chest. Be sure that when you lie down, you can still reach your blocks. Go ahead and draw your knees into chest. And just some gentle movements. Just to massage. I'm creating like a figure 8 shape here with the knees, which for me positively affects my low back. It just feels nice. Now, let's go ahead and set the feet onto the floor. We're moving into a supported bridge pose. It's a back bend, but it's a mild one, and we're using the support of the blocks. We're just going to be sitting. So here we go. We're going to inhale. Exhale, engaging the body so you can lift your hips high enough to slide your blocks underneath you, and then sit. Okay, and almost come to relaxation, because a lot of the body disengages. A lot of the muscles don't need to fire up in order for you to be in this posture. You're basically just sitting. Okay? Now what's kind of interesting about this posture, it kind of mimics, just imagine sitting in a chair, okay? Not too many things are engaged when you're just sitting in a chair or sofa, okay? And that's when we get some atrophy in the muscles, and we also get some deactivation of some of our muscles. They just stop engaging because they really don't need to. In some fashion, even though we're in this back bend form, we're kind of relaxed here, and so not much is engaging. Even the glutes. Core barely engaged, legs barely engaged, okay? But this is something I like to do in soft flow because it does allow for a comfortable release of the front body. But we're going to do something extra for our practice today. Now, go ahead and press feet into the floor, lifting the hips, remove the blocks, and then come back down to the ground. Now first, we're going to do a pelvic tilt here. Basically, we're just going to mimic the cat and cow. Imagine you are on your hands and knees. We're just going to do that same motion, but we're just lying on our backs. So as we inhale, anteriorly tilt, arching the back. I call this low bridge because there should be some space in your low back, right there. As we exhale, creating the posterior tilt, we're rocking the pelvis so your low back presses into the floor. See if you can do that. Inhale, lift the low back off the floor. Exhale, press low back into the floor. Notice the pelvic tilt. The little back bend is anterior. The exhale is posterior. Now, as you do the posterior, do that a few more times, you're also engaging your core. We're going to inhale, follow me. We're going to exhale, press low back into the floor, but we're going to hold this posture. Hold the posterior tilt, but keep breathing. But just hold the tilt. Low back's pressing into the floor. We're going to feel some engagement in the low belly. This is a wonderful and easy, hopefully, core engaging practice. Again, sometimes So our abdominal muscles, especially the transverse abdominis muscles, which I'm running my hand across my body like there was a belt running across my waist. That's the transverse abdominis muscles. That's how they are in your body. Low and deep. And they don't really engage too much, but they do engage when you do this tilt. And that's what we want. We want to be able to strengthen those muscle groupings. And that's what you're doing here. It's a posterior tilt. We're engaging the core, pressing low back into the floor. Now just go ahead and relax. Let all that disengage. All right, our next movement is going to really help us get into our glutes. And it's a wonderful exercise of awakening the dead butt, okay? Now we're going to do that same tilting of the pelvis here on the floor, and then we're going to lift up. So follow me. We're going to inhale, arching the back, create the low bridge. Low back is lifting up off the ground. Exhale, press low back into the floor, tipping the pelvis in a posterior fashion, engaging those low ab muscles. Do it one more time. Inhale, arch. Exhale, scoop or press low back into the floor, hold. Okay, keeping that hollowed out feeling of the low belly, that posterior scoop, press feet into the floor, exhale, lift hips slowly off the ground. Okay, you don't have to go too high, but you want to get high enough until you might start to feel your glute muscles engage. Okay, they're flexing because they're helping you to lift and they're helping you to hold. This is exactly what we want. I call this a ramp because there's kind of a straight line that runs from your knees right down to your shoulders. One thing I didn't mention, your feet are wide here. So if the feet are not wide, you might want to come back down, take the feet a little wider, and then lift. Don't forget to do the scoop, lift, and the more you scoop, the more you're going to engage the glutes because I'm feeling it here. This is exactly the exercise we want to have happen. You might even feel your thighs engaging. This is also good. So this is kind of a non-supported bridge pose, but we're not in a full back bend. Okay, do you feel this? 2 more breaths. Oh, I really feel this now. We are going to do it one more time, but let's go ahead and soften and slowly return to the floor. Now keep the pelvic tilt if you can as you slowly come back down because you want the low back to make contact with the floor. And then just soften here, completely relax, disengage. So that's round 1. We're going to do it one more time. So this is how we can awaken the dead butt, okay? Because like I said, in many circumstances, and we're not even aware of it, in places or situations where we should be engaging or firing up those glute muscles, we're not. And other parts of the body take the brunt. It could be your legs, it could be your back. Okay, to help support yourself. Glutes are large muscles, and we can use them to help support our bodies. Okay, here we go. Inhale, stay on the floor, arching the back. Low back lifts away from the floor. Exhale, press low back into the floor, creating the posterior tilt. Hold. Another extra exhale to feel that low core muscle engagement. Press feet into the ground. Next exhale, slowly lift. Lift to the point where you really start to feel maybe the thighs, hip flexors, and those glutes. Feel them fire up right about here. For me, I feel this. This is great. This is even great if you just want to have a more shapely butt, okay? Just to engage those muscles. But beyond just the aesthetic, it's about functionality. 3 more breaths here. Do your best. Now, beyond this yoga class, I encourage you to even practice this little exercise. All right, we're going to move. Inhale. Exhale. Slowly return to the earth, keeping that scooped pelvic sensation so that the low back makes contact with the ground. And once you have made contact, feel everything relax, disengage, and then we're going to stretch. Extend the legs out front and reach the arms behind you. Now hold here because this can be another test for you. If you reach in these opposite directions, and if your low back whoop, just pops up off the floor, that might also be an indicator of more of an anterior tilt. So what you can do as an addition to your exercise work here, extend the legs, extend the arms in this fashion, and then pelvically tilt, trying to press the low back into the floor. It engages the glutes, it flattens, in a way it flattens the low back so it touches the ground. 3 breaths. I'm even flexing my feet. I can feel my thighs engage. Okay, so this is another component to the exercise if you'd like. And then soften once again. All right, bend your knees, bring your feet to the floor, and go ahead and just roll to one side because we're going to come back up to seated. We have a few more exercises to do here. Now we did mention our core. Now we've already been doing some core work because of the pelvic tilt work. You can just do that also in an isolated fashion. So we're going to stay here with the legs slightly bent. Okay, you don't have to keep them really bent because it's going to engage the thighs. We want to actually not have that happen at the moment, and take the feet a little bit farther forward. So there is a bend. There's a lot of space between the floor and your knees, but do hold on to the legs. Flex your feet to help engage. Now sit up as tall as you can, like this, like you're sitting up against a wall. We're going to inhale and get very tall. Feel the breath rise, fill up your lungs. Exhale, engage your core. Start to lean back a little bit. It doesn't have to be far at all. Here, you might even start to feel your whole core system engage. We're going to stay here for a moment because here's the action. The action is inhale, feel tall and lifted at this angle. And as you exhale, imagine you're able to scoop the pelvis in a posterior fashion. Now, it may not move at all because you're sitting on your pelvis, but you will activate your muscles. In particular, that transverse abdominis muscle, that grouping that goes across the body. I call it the abdominal floor. When we flex and strengthen that part of the body, many other functions of the body become even more strong and supported. So again, I'm inhaling, feeling lifted and long through the torso. Breath is rising to fill the lungs. Exhaling, I'm attempting to scoop the pelvis under, and I can feel my belly engage. Now, the farther back you go, the more you're going to feel this. You can come up a little higher, okay, and still do the work, but maybe be able to hold the pose a little longer. And that's another reason why we extended the legs out, so that the thighs here or the hip flexors don't grip too much. Because what will happen is your abs will get tired and other muscles engage. That's what happens to our glutes sometimes. Glutes stop functioning, other body parts jump in to save the day. Okay, let's go ahead and relax. Let's take a forward fold here. Let's go ahead and just cross the legs, whatever fashion that feels good for you. And just extend the arms out front. Okay, you don't have to fold all the way, but just creating some roundedness in the spine. You can even lower your head, so just something a little bit more relaxed. It actually just helps to relax the abs that we just worked, and you might even get a little stretch in your back. Very good. For the sake of time, we're going to go on to our next exercise, but feel free to do those boat pose. That's what basically this is, boat pose, and just do that variation of the boat to help increase the strength in your core. Now we're going to come back to hands and knees here. We're going to come to a downward facing dog. Now I'm going to bring my blanket so it's handy right next to me, because we're going to be kneeling, and if you want something to kneel on, have your blanket nearby. So hands and knees. Let's go ahead and tuck toes, lift the knees and hips. Downward facing dog. We're going to inhale here, extend the right leg up into the air like we did earlier. Exhale, bend the right knee, shift forward, bring the knee in, and as you're able, bring foot near the right hand. You can certainly do what we did earlier to get the foot to the top of the mat. While in this lunge, you want to bring your soft blanket or towel underneath you and set the knee on the blanket. And then we're going to rise up. Now you can use blocks here. You may not need them, but your blocks can be handy here. But we are going to come up nice and tall. Okay? Move those forward so you can see my feet. So basically my legs are at right angles. I'm going to move my right foot forward just a little bit so it kind of changes, so it's out of a right angle position. Now, sometimes when we do this pose, I have you go into a deep lunge, which really affects, in this case, the back leg, the left leg, to stretch the hip flexor. But what happens, let me just show you, don't do this. If we do that, we get into this nice, beautiful lunge, stretching here, but we might be collapsing into the back. And the glutes, they're stretching, but they're not really engaged, okay? So we're not doing that. So with the foot slightly forward, hands on thighs, nice and tall here, I'm trying to get a pelvic tilt. I'm trying to tuck underneath, and automatically I'm feeling my left thigh engage. And then I'm going to shift forward a little bit. Now I'm feeling that stretch, but I'm actively trying to scoop the pelvis underneath, getting that anterior tilt to activate the glutes. Okay, it won't be as strongly engaged as we did in that bridge pose, but they are engaged because you're scooping under. We're also engaging core, and we're getting that hip flexor stretch. Those are the three things I mentioned at the beginning of class that we are focusing on. 3 more breaths here. And you can see I'm not even lunging too deeply, but maybe you really do feel this. At least I do. After that 3rd breath, we can soften, fold, maybe bring the hands out front. Here's something to get out of the pose. Here's what you can do. Bring both hands to the inside of the right foot. Bring the left hand way over to the left side of your body here. Leaning in that direction, I'm going to extend my right leg out to the right side. You really can't see that. I'm just doing a little stretch, reaching the right hand up into the air and maybe overhead. Little side body stretch, it gets into the hips nicely, but you can also continue tucking the pelvis under, engaging the glutes for a little bit more pelvic support. Inhale, exhale carefully coming out of this, soften the body, bring the hands to the floor in front, and now we can bring that right foot back behind us. We're on our hands and knees. Go ahead and return to your downward facing dog, and we'll do the other side. You can certainly keep the blanket there or move it, and then bring it back in when we're ready to kneel. Inhale, extend left leg up. Exhale, bend the left knee, bring it forward so you can step over the blanket. It's okay if you don't step over. I'm stepping right on it right now. I'm putting the right knee down. I'm stepping the left foot forward. Actually, go ahead and do that because this is putting us right into the pose. So the left foot's forward, right knee is on the blanket, and then we can go ahead and rise up. There we are. Same thing, I'm just moving my left foot forward just a little bit because I am going to be going forward. I want to keep this alignment, right? But we want to engage here. Feel nice and tall. You might even place hands on hips. Actively even use your hands to help maneuver the pelvis to tuck underneath. Starting to feel some glute engagement, but maybe already feeling the right hip flexor. At least I do. And then a shift forward just slightly to increase that stretch. And we just hold here. Now what I've been doing personally, I'll hold this for 1 minute. 1 minute on both legs. And I just do that once a day. That's all I do. And I think it's really helped. It's helped to really pay attention to be a little bit more of my glute engagement, my core engagement, and the stretch that feels really good in the hip flexors. And that's something we also want, again, just think about sitting. If you're sitting all the time, okay, this is the sitting pattern, right? Right here. And so all of this can disengage, and also it also just gets tight because of non-functioning. Alrighty, so getting into a lunge like this to lightly stretch helps to release those tensions. Alright, we're going to soften this up. Carefully fold, bring your hands to the floor on the inside of the left foot. Bring the right hand way over to the right side so I can extend my left leg to the left side, and then taking left arm overhead and reaching over to the right side of the room. Nice stretch. And then tuck pelvis under just to engage, to support the pelvis since I'm in this side bend sensation. And then we'll soften, bring the hands to the floor in front, and come to hands and knees. And while we're here, let's just do those cat-cow flow movements again at your own pace. This is exactly where we started our work and attention to our pelvis, the glutes, hip flexors, low belly. Finish the breath that you're on and take 2 more. And just hold neutral for a moment. All right, we're going to do our closing sequence and just make our way down to the ground. So if you got a blanket there, let's set it to the side. If your blocks are out there, you might want to bring them over to the side so you can grab them if you like to use them again. So I'm just sitting back in hero, off to the side. Scoot so you're sitting in the center of your mat. And then go ahead and roll down onto your back. Go ahead and draw your knees into chest. Do as we did before. You might just kind of disengage a little bit, find the breath, gentle movements, just to feel this wonderful massage. But we're going to engage this a little bit because you can do this next thing as a component of your bodily work. Now, come back to neutral, still holding onto the knees. Gently flex the feet just to energize the legs. We're going to inhale. Exhale, try to do the posterior tilt of the pelvis. Feel the low back press more into the floor. At the same time, lift your head and chest up. So your upper back kind of lifts up off the floor. Inhale right here. Exhale, see if you can continue that scooping sensation like you're curling yourself up into a ball. And just hold for 30 seconds, but keep breathing. Okay, again, we're just, that rounding sensation like a ball gets us in the posterior tilt, but we also have some core engagement. Low back is pressing into the ground. After that 30 seconds, you can just soften. But keep the knees drawn towards the body. Let's take a hip opener. Again, just lightly flex the feet, holding onto the knees or shins, and take the legs apart. Okay, so you start to get a stretch and lengthening through the inner legs here. You don't have to go too far. What I like to do is actually bring my arms, or at least my elbows, down to the floor, free up my hands, and then present them like I was holding like a tray or a platter, and just place the legs on those platters. So I'm basically just holding the legs open, or the legs have just fallen into the hands, so there's a little bit of support, while I'm getting that natural, easy stretch in the inner legs. This is actually getting us ready for happy baby pose, which we're not doing today, but happy baby pose is just kicking the feet up into the air, okay, and holding onto the soles of the feet. But this is kind of a lead-up version and even a somewhat softer version of the posture, but similar effect. Now, let's bring the soles of the feet together so they touch, and then set the feet onto the floor. And then you can release the legs and let them fall towards the ground. Now, if your books or blocks or pillows are nearby, you can set them underneath the legs. So the legs, again, are resting on something for some support as you get an additional stretch in the inner legs. You can even check in with your low back. It might be touching the floor, it may not be touching the floor. It's okay if it's not, okay? But you can activate, if you want, pelvically tilt or posteriorly tilt, pressing low back into the floor, engaging your core. It takes away some of the relaxation of this posture, but just for fun, you can do that just to notice, like, oh, where's my pelvis and what's it doing? But you can certainly just lie here in full relaxation. 2 more breaths. Our last movement together is just a twist. You can bring the knees together, another hug of the knees in towards your body. You're going to carefully and slowly send the knees over to the left side of the room. You can even bring them, if they reach the floor, that's fine. If they don't, that's okay. Again, just tuck a prop underneath the legs on that left side. And as you'd like, extend the right arm out to the right side of the room. And just some deep breaths here. Again, there's kind of a combination of relaxation here, some disengagement, but there's some activation as well, because your body is trying to hold itself in place. Because if you completely relaxed, you might even notice that you kind of fall out of the pose. And so you do need some engagement to help hold yourself here. but mostly it is relaxing and getting a nice stretch perhaps in the low back, in your hips. 3 more breaths. And when you feel complete on this first side, we can come back up to center. You might even pause there for a moment for realignment, and then take the knees over to the other side. Use props as you'd like. Spinal twist. Settle in. You might even just pay attention to the parts of the body that are relaxed, and then notice the parts that are somewhat engaged. Since we're just about at the end of our practice, go ahead and take note of how you're feeling, all that we've done and perhaps learned in our practice today. All right, carefully and slowly return to center. One more hug of the knees in towards the body, and then go ahead and extend the legs out in front of you. Arms can come down by your side, perhaps with your palms turned up, and just settle into Shavasana. Disengage, release completely. You've done your work. Now it's time for rest, relaxation, and meditation. You certainly can keep your eyes opened. Just gaze softly upward, or you might close your eyes and move inward. The breath doesn't have to be too deep, but certainly be aware of the breath. As best as you can, just stay focused on your breathing. Stay here as long as you'd like. This is a wonderful opportunity to really just take this advantage of being relaxed, no movement, very little thought. Even as I end the practice, you're welcome to stay just as you are. Take full advantage of this moment. When you are ready to move, take 5 slow, deep breaths. Feeling the breath as it moves through your body. Listen to the sound of your breath. Experience movement returning to your body. This is only when you're ready to move. If you're still in relaxation and meditation, just stay as you are. After the 5th breath, or when you're ready to move, move in slow motion. You might even bend your knees, feet on the floor, so you can manipulate your body to roll onto one side of your body. You might even pause here. And then slowly press and lift yourself up to seated, and come to a seated posture. Just as we started at the beginning of our practice, sitting tall with a lengthened spine, perhaps with crossed legs. Arms can be by your side, hands in your lap. Take a breath. Now your hands can stay in your lap or bring hands to heart center, taking one more deep breath. Fill up your heart space and exhale completely. And as we come to the close of our practice today, we bow together saying, Namaste. Thank you so much for watching and participating in this yoga lesson. To help us with the channel so we can continue to bring you more content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's really appreciated. Namaste.